welcome to the Talkin Kop. My name's Ashley. I'm hosting tonight, and I have my friends Kev and Chris with me today to talk through a little bit of chat about the PSG game and previewing the Southampton game. So I guess we will start. I'm going to ask you guys, it's been 24 hours. The dust has settled. Kev, how are you feeling about the game last night? What are your thoughts now that, the emotions died down? We've heard all of the things. We've seen, red cards that might have actually been offside. What's your prevailing thoughts?
I still look back. I watched the post-match extra the lads did on Patreon, and if anyone hasn't caught it, well worth going to find out about Patreon through the app. Just search Patreon and go through there. You can join free for a week and then subscribe if you like what you see. But I watched that back today with Gav and Matt. And you watch some of Alisson's saves and you forget some of them were how really good they were. And just thinking back on it, look, that game, if we lost that 3-1, I don't think you're arguing too much. But we didn't, and we come out of it with a 1-0 win. And confidence is going to be not through the roof, but I think they'll know what's coming in the second leg and they'll be in a better place to deal with it. But it definitely is halftime. It is halftime. It's not like we won anything last night. But considering some of the results that I've seen today in the Europa League and the conference, it's a very, very good win. I suppose you got to look at it. The Arsenal result aside, because that's just a freak. The rest of the ties up and down the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Conference League, there's not much in any of them. Almost all of the ties are still alive going into the second leg, ours as much as anyone else. But yeah, I'm happy that we're in it, getting the advantage now from the advantage that we get from winning or coming in the top 8. So where we finished in the league phase, this is the advantage. This is why we did it. So we get the second leg at home in this tie. And we just hope that Anfield is absolutely rocking for it. And it's also nice the fact that we're playing Saturday at home as well. So no big traveling in between games or anything like that. And it'll be good for the weekend as well to get back to playing a kind of football that we want to play and get a confidence and a rhythm back in that side of our game as well, especially in our passing. Try and build on that and take that into the game of the weekend or on Tuesday night, because it's going to be huge. It is massively up in the air. Anything can happen on Tuesday night, but delighted, relieved. Yeah. You take your pick. There's so many single adjectives you can use for it, but amazed at Alisson, delighted for Harvey, happy for Darwin. Most of all, happy for the squad to travel, and the fact that there was no aggro, no crowd trouble, no nothing. The night passed off really well, and seen some of the camera footage actually from the crowd of Elliott's goal. It's unreal.
Limbs everywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Complete total elation, because look, I think the Liverpool fans were at the end where PSG were attacking into the second half.
Mm-hmm.
So to see
it was a fair old distance to watch.
Oh yeah, but to see that second half unfold the way it did, see some of the saves that Alisson was making, and then go and nick it. Complete elation for them. They must have been absolutely delighted.
Yeah, I mean, whoever made the trip over, definitely worth it. I am very, very glad that there was no external drama. I think we've had our fair share of that in the past. I think just getting in and out of Paris without incident, that's what you want. And yeah, watching, Kev just mentioned it a few seconds ago, but if you haven't watched the kind of post match with Matt and Gav going through all of these things, like frame by frame, really, which is new for us. They were able to throw up video and really go through it with a fine-tooth comb in a way that we can't do on our normal post-match. So again, that's through our Patreon, which is a new thing that we're trying out. The link is in the description if that's something that you'd like to do. It definitely helped me kind of go through the different parts of the game in a way that I wasn't able to do on the show last night. I think being able to watch like exactly how amazing those goals were from Alisson. Like you said, that was, for me, the best goalkeeping performance that I've seen him have for us. But yeah, Chris, what about you? How are you feeling now that the dust has settled? You've probably watched that show. You've heard some of the, some of the afterthoughts of some of the people. I think there's a lot of people that are maybe a little bit angry. They kind of are calling it a major robbery, smash and grab. Like, what are your thoughts about the game now that everything's kind of calmed down?
I mean, smash and grab is what it was. Let's not kid ourselves. It was a smash and grab. I felt it a bit more in the second half. I've watched quite a bit of it back. Aside from the free kick and the shot from distance, I actually felt defensively second half we limped them to very little in terms of real big clear cut chances. Listen, they've got quality, so they are gonna have guys who can shoot from a stupid angle and produce force out into a brilliant save. But in general, second half I thought we actually got to grips with how they played pretty well. First half we were a bit all over the shop. The big thing for the home leg is we cannot be as bad on the ball, because if we're that bad on the ball again, we'll go out. I think you can get away with that once. I think over two legs, if we pass it that poorly, I think we'll be in trouble. Probably looking back, maybe was a bit harsh on Jota. Because looking at it, I thought maybe he got to grips with the game a bit more than we thought. I think what the problem for Jota was, I think his lack of pace was exposed because the two wide lads were pretty much anonymous all game. Salah and Diaz were both extremely poor. So, but I felt it on the night, and I still feel it watching back. Those subs were big for Liverpool. Every one of the subs that came on got Liverpool more of a grip in the game, and what we thought was going to see us over a draw and end up getting a win. I do not believe Slots threw on Elliott hoping he'd nick him a goal. He definitely threw.
I don't think that was his master plan. I mean,
I think his master plan for Elliott was waste a bit of time because there's 5 minutes to go. Although Elliott's neat and tidy in the ball, so he'll cover the fullback, and that'll do us. And the highlights showed it's probably the one time that Mendy switched off. And to be fair to Elliott, he noticed it and went, "He's not followed me," but he's followed Salah all game. And just
I think that might have been a part of it, though, where the guard goes down the minute Salah goes off. I think Matt mentioned this morning, where it's like, did Elliott take that opportunity and seize it? I think he did.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so please for Elliott, because that's his third goal in Europe, so he seems to quite like scoring in Europe this year. But
I think he scored in every one of his Champions League games this year, which is a crazy stat. We haven't really seen him that much.
Yeah. I've also liked his interview that's come out. He was quite mature. Was asked about his lack of game time. He said, "Well, I'm only 22 and I've played over 100 games at Liverpool." So I said, "I feel quite experienced. So there's plenty of time for me to get more game time, and I've just got to be ready." I thought, it's kind of the attitude you want. It's kind of the Endo attitude, which is when you need me, I'll make sure I make an impact, and that's kind of what you want to do. And he's at the age of 22 where it's not going to be as big a issue. He's not 27 not playing, because I think that's then when problems arise.
I don't even think he's 22 yet. I think he's turning 22 in a couple of weeks. So, the world is his oyster. It's definitely, got plenty of time out in front of him.
Before we move on, the one thing that I forgot to mention last night, and I wanted to talk to you guys about it, because we all watched different feeds.
Mm-hmm.
And on mine, I had Ronnie Whelan.
Oh,
and I had Didi Hamann in the studio at halftime. So at halftime, I came out and did the washing up, made a coffee, and timed it so I went back in and sat down as the second half kicked off. I cannot listen to that, man. He just goes through my soul. But Ronnie Whelan hates football, and he hates Liverpool more than he hates football. I swear to God, for a legend of the club, a guy who was a brilliant player, if you ever seen him play, he was truly top tier. I have never seen a more miserable, dour bastard in commentary in my life, because he couldn't bring himself to understand the game that was going on. He couldn't bring himself to understand that we were giving PSG the wings. And tactically, he's got no brain. It's like Ronnie Whelan, the player, was a magician in the middle of the park. Ronnie Whelan, the pundit, is showing up why he was never a coach or a manager, because he just doesn't understand the game. And I don't know who you guys had. I heard the Rio Ferdinand stuff with Ali McCoy was brutal, yeah?
It was brutal, but it was, and the Anfield website, it was too much Rio Ferdinand. So literally, he was on a little bit of the pre-match stuff. He was on the Coco comms with McCoy, and then he said, well, we've lost Rio now for the last 10 minutes because he's going down to do the half-time punditry with Steve McManaman. I was like, fuck it. And Steve McManaman is just as bad because he thinks everything should be simple. And it's, I think Steve McManaman has the element of Steve McManaman was a brilliant player. And I think he can't understand that players perhaps don't think like he did, and then within 5 minutes, second half started, Rio's back, and he was, honestly, it was proper fan TV nonsense coming from him. I think McCoy wasn't too bad. He just seems to be quite excitable that the game was very good, quite exciting. And then Rio sort of switched off once Elliott scored, and you didn't hear him the rest of the game. But apparently he got back from France and did a podcast slagging off Liverpool. So, the hate's real with him. So
I don't remember who I didn't look up who was speaking during the commentary for my game, but the post-match coverage, I'm in Boston, so I've got CBS. I don't know if you guys caught any of the post-match. It had Carragher and Micah Richards. It had Thierry Henry.
I saw a bit with Schmeichel, was it?
That's what I was going to say. There was a fantastic interview with Kasper Schmeichel.
Casper or Peter?
Not Casper, sorry. Brain fart. Peter Schmeichel.
No, it's just because I watched something earlier on today with Casper Schmeichel in as well.
Yeah, sorry, they look so similar on TV. That was
big time.
But no, the interview he did with Ali in the post-match was just really, really enlightening. I mean, you have a legend of the game there speaking to what I think is going to be a legend for a long time coming. Yeah. And the appreciation that he had for that performance. I mean, he said it was one of the best goalkeeping performances that he'd ever seen. And he could not have been more proud and more glowing in his review of that entire game. And I think that was just very telling from someone that really knows exactly how hard that is to do. So if you haven't seen that, I direct you probably to Twitter to go and see that, because it's worth, the 5 or so minutes to listen to that interview, because it's very enlightening. But yeah,
they are funny. They are funny. They're geared for the American market. Let's be honest. They
are. I mean,
their routine is very
better job. They do a much better job. It feels much more like actual football analysis, whereas some of the U.S. coverage feels more like, showbiz. I think that the way that they cover the Champions League is actually quite good here.
Yeah.
I think CBS have got the balance right, as in the players seem more relaxed. So you probably get a bit more out of them. Players, when they get into the English press, are very much on their guard and don't give much away. Don't really give very interesting. I actually think most players don't give very many interesting interviews, because they're like, well, if they say anything funny or slightly cheeky, that's all I'm going to hear about, and it's going to be taken out of context. So why bother? The other thing I would say is I do find Carragher a bit cringe on it. I think he's a bit too much. I think he's trying too hard to be.
It's a big personality thing. I think he's taking whatever he has as a base level and he's making it kind of larger than life.
Yeah, I do find him a little bit cringe on it. But look, it's not for but that's just my taste. Maybe I can see why, but I can see why it's popular. But I actually think that's one thing they do get well is I think players feel more relaxed, so they're more likely to be open in a conversation, which is why with Alisson, he was a bit more technical about how he plays, and you're like, oh, okay, that's different, something you don't hear very often. Talk about the technique of a goalkeeper.
Yeah. I mean, I thought overall, I mean, for me, my coverage was pretty good. I've definitely heard mixed reviews from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. So I'm sorry that you guys had that kind of experience. Because I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but when you have a bad set of pundits or a bad set of commentators, like that can ruin the game for me. Sometimes I just have to mute it completely, because it really can just sour the tone of the whole thing.
I think it also, I people won't admit it, but me and Kev have noticed this doing podcasting is you can tell when certain pundits are on, and if they're very anti-Liverpool, you see it come through in the comments. Anything negative about Liverpool, you can it's like verbatim going, I've literally heard Gary Neville said that 10 minutes ago, and then people parrot it, so I sometimes just switch off the punditry at halftime because I don't really want to influence people. I kind of want it to be how I think I see it. Whether I'm right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But at least then it's not influenced by what's being parroted to me.
True.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason I brought up the game like last night is because I think that has quite a large role to play in what's going to happen this weekend. I think because we have this other game sandwiched on the other side of the weekend, along with that Newcastle final, this game feels like a bit of an anomaly in terms of, I'm not quite sure how Slot's going to approach it. I think there's a question, do you rest players or do you go for rhythm? And I think that there's actually a really interesting conversation to be had about, what Slot's going to do for this game because, we have this opportunity to go 16 points clear. Arsenal doesn't play till Sunday. They're going to play away at Man United, which, Man United is what they are, but they do tend to step up for those big games. So, getting those 3 points for us is going to be first and foremost. So, Kev, what do you think Slot's going to do? Do you think this is going to be same 11 from last night? You go forward, you get rhythm, and then you maybe rotate, or do you think there's going to be a little bit more rotation from the get-go?
I think you got it. I think he's going to have to rotate it. I don't think you can play the same 11 week in, week out all the time. And the thing is, it's not a given that we're going to go through Tuesday night. After the international break, we legitimately could come back to just playing league games till the rest of the season. Yeah. And if that's the case, I said it to Gav during the show, I think Monday night, I think they'll reassess their targets and try to hit 97 points. I think they'll try to go, if we go out against PSG, I think they'll try their level best to win every single game between now and the end of the season and absolutely decimate the league. But I think he'll go into this weekend knowing that they've earned the right to be able to make enough changes. I don't think there'll be loads because the two games that we've played against them this season at St. Mary's, they've both been tight. There's been a 3-2 and 2-1 in the league and in the League Cup, sorry. Mm-hmm. But the 3-2 in the league, it was an 83rd minute Salah penalty to win it.
And it wasn't that particular game was not against a rested side. The league was a little bit rotated. But, surprisingly, the game that the 3-2 rather, that was close. I didn't see that coming.
No. And the thing is, I hate the term free hit, but this is an absolute free hit for Southampton. They know they're gone. They know they're done. They've also got a squad of players who a lot of them are going to be playing for moves. And no better way to try to get yourself noticed, get yourself a move, is to go away and have a good performance against Liverpool at Anfield, especially if you're like that young winger Dibbling. Mm-hmm. If you're someone like him, what a great place to go and show what you're about and put in a performance. Or if you're part of a defensive unit, to be solid defensive and try to come away with a point. They're not gonna get out of relegation. They're as good as gone. They're 9 points. But I think if you go in to any game against any opposition, and we saw that against Plymouth, thinking you've already won the 3 points just because you're Liverpool, you can come unstuck against anybody. So the attitude has to be right, and the players that I think he'll pick, some of them have points to prove as well. And they'll know what it means. They'll want to get back to a style of play that they're more accustomed to and look to get the 3 points done. And if Arne Slot wants to make changes on the hour, you're just resting legs then. Mm-hmm. But I honestly wouldn't be a bit surprised if he makes a good few changes from the start and just gets through the game. There were some performances last night. Mo Salah was just the outstanding one. It wasn't so much of his inability to hold the ball up or anything like that. I know the balls up to him weren't great. He tracked back an awful lot last night, more than usual. And I'd say he covered a lot more ground last night than he ordinarily would do in most games, because every time that I looked, he wasn't cheating. He wasn't on the halfway line. He was back doubling up as much as possible. But it's not a part of the game he enjoys. It's not a part of the game he's any good at. But he was there and he tried. So, if at all possible, you could take him off on the hour with the 3 points wrapped up. That's the kind of thing I think Arne Slot would love to see happen on Saturday. Plus it's enough time after the Wednesday night, and it's enough time of a break before the Tuesday night, that if you want to play some, 5 or 6 of your regular starters and rotate them in the 90 minutes if you can, if you get me, then you can do it, and it's not going to be detrimental to them on Tuesday night. But I think he'll try to be smart about it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be one of those games where it's more of a balancing act in terms of the rest and rotation. I think, I agree. I think you'll see, some strategic substitutions made around 60 or 70. There's no sugarcoating where Southampton is. They are 9 points. The record is 11. So they've got, I think about 11 games to save face and basically, not break that record that Derby County has. Chris, how are you feeling about this game? Are you, there's been a few people in the chat that have mentioned, Liverpool kind of always look a little bit leggy, a little bit slow when they're coming off of a break. This team just had a week off. We don't normally have a week off. We had a very intense game yesterday. Do you think that these guys need rhythm, or do you think Slot is going to do what Kev said and rotate heavily for this weekend?
I think he's going to rotate, but I don't think it'll be heavily. I think he's looking 3 or 4, which has kind of been outside of the domestic cups, his MO all season. I also think I know they're a better side, but the Wolves scare, I think, will be in their mind, which was we were in a similar position when we were playing Wolves, going, we've got bigger games either side of Wolves. We just need to get through it. And they nearly got egg in the face second half against Wolves. And I do wonder if he's going to go probably stronger than people will like. But I agree with Kev. I think he'll want to try and get it won in the hour, so then he can do even more rotation. But I could see 2 of the back line changing, 1 midfielder, 1 attacker. So I could see max 4. I just think he's going to try go still fairly strong, make sure he gets the game won, and then look to rotate. So look, someone like it wouldn't surprise me if Gravenberch starts again. I know people, I see some in the chat, are concerned about him, but I don't think anything was to do with legs and too many games as well. I think it was the setup in that game. He was left 2v1 quite a lot, and it was more tiredness because it was a game where he ran hard. Again, this shouldn't be a game he has to run hard. And listen, if he starts Endo, I'm not going to be worried about it, but I don't think Endo will start. I think Endo's role is very defined. You're there to close out last half hours, last 20s.
And he does brilliantly.
He does. But also, this is a game where you expect Liverpool to dominate the ball, and with all due respect to Endo, that's not his biggest strength, is him on the ball. His best work is off the ball to lay it off. So I expect changes, but I don't think it'll be that many.
Okay. Kev, do you think that anyone that played last night did enough to force a start, or do you think that they're all going to be subs again?
I know. I think that it's not a case of them forcing their way in. I just think there'll be natural rotation there. Look, I'll give you my 11. All right.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
I think Alisson starts. I think Trent and Simic has to be fullbacks. I think Kwanzaa and Van Dijk centre backs. Gravenberch, Jones, and Harvey Elliott Gravenberch and Jones as your 2 6s.
Mm-hmm.
Elliott in the 10, with Salah on one side, Diaz on the other side, Núñez up front. That's 5 changes. And I don't think that's a weak side by any stretch.
The only one from my 11 that I had in my head was I've still got in my head Szoboszlai starts over Elliott.
The only reason I'd start Elliott is one, he needs games. Two, you can't keep playing Szoboszlai. It's going to be Saturday. Well, it's Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, cup final. You'll have 2 games for Hungary, and comes back into the Everton game. They can't do it all. Gravenberch has been taken off early in the last few games for that reason. I think is because he's going to go away. The Netherlands have a Nations League quarterfinal, home and away against Spain.
Doubleheader, yeah,
doubleheader against Spain. Van Dijk and Gravenberch will play both games, and that's nailed on certainty. So, and he'll be asked to play in a different role for the Netherlands. He'll be asked to play as a more advanced 8 for the Netherlands. So, if we want to be on the back end of the international break with the squad intact as we are now, I can't think of a better opponent than you're coming up against at home this weekend. That if you want to manage players' minutes, this is the game to do it. And the reason why I'd say with McAllister is McAllister's, I assume Argentina are playing
probably
this break, so he's gonna be going away. Diaz probably starts because Gakpo isn't available. I don't think you go from not being in the match day squad to starting in the space of a couple of days.
You'd hope he's ideally. We hope he's on the bench. He can get like a 15-20 minute.
Exactly. And Darwin needs a start because I think Darwin should be starting on Tuesday night. So you've got to get minutes into his legs.
Yeah, I was thinking that because the other flip side is, do you give Jota another 60? Tell Darwin just do a big run in for the last half hour, because then we're going to start you and give you a good 70 minutes against PG. Because I suppose in back of Slot's head, he's also got to think about there is the potential of extra time. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that we could be looking at an extra half hour at Anfield. I'm not wishing it.
Not at Anfield.
I mean,
not
at Anfield, but for the PSG
for the PSG game, yeah.
The PSG game.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's what I mean.
You could be talking about extra time versus Newcastle too. There's 2 games back to back that potentially you could be going extra.
The other thing that's going to help us as well, not that you wish to go out the FA Cup, but because we're out the FA Cup, when we return to the international break, it's FA Cup weekend, which we're not involved in. So we've got that weekend off, and we don't play again till the Wednesday. So it's going to be like a weird thing. Like players will come back like Wednesday, Thursday. So like almost have like a 6-day break again before they play again. So that sort of fell nicely for us. I mean, we'd rather be in the FA Cup, but
yeah.
If you're looking for positives in it,
I mean, we can try.
But also, if you look for positives, there is like another natural break, and that's what I mean. To us, that'll be the last probably natural break if we get past PSG, and it's still an if because I think they proved last night how good they are, and it also proves the early performance of the Champions League was just them getting to grips with how the manager wants them to play, and now they're in full flow. I think they're going to cause people problems.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely going to cause. I mean, I hope they don't cause us problems. I
hope not. Yeah.
I said it the other night. It's a shame that this matchup happened now because they are a really good team. I think that a lot of people are kind of waking up to that now. I think the early results were, deceiving. I guess. To see that PSV result, that Arsenal result, I think people read a little bit too much into it. I think that what we saw last night was a pretty complete young team with a long way to go. I think, maybe where they are mentally is not quite as strong as they might get to. I think, we stuck in that game in a way that I don't know if they expected us to, and I think that maybe with a few more years experience, that team, it reminds me a little bit of us when we were just sort of breaking into the Champions League a few years ago, where it was really exciting and there was lots of talent, but you didn't necessarily have like the battle hardness. And I think that's something that team could probably get to with a little bit of time. I think I agree with most of you in terms of a little bit of rotation. I don't know about Kwanzaa, just because I think that he's integral for Trent's rotation. So I worry about, I don't love the idea of playing Konate this many big games in a week, but I do think you have to kind of walk a tightrope there with how you're managing Trent. So I don't know if there's an endo role at center back going on that might, play a role later in the game. I think this is one of those ones that I would prefer to just get it one, not to rotate too much from the get-go, get it one, and then at 60 make changes. I don't think that there's ever really an easy game in this league. I think this is probably as close as you're going to get to one on paper, but what actually shows up is very different. I think Anfield will have a role to play. You've seen Virgil kind of calling for a raucous atmosphere. I don't think this is any different. I know it's a lower team in the league, but I do think it's important that Anfield shows up and really gets, I don't want to go, I said it the other day, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. Like there's still work to be done here. So in terms of this weekend, I'm hoping not too much rotation for me personally.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Southampton's I think their last league game, because they were out of the cup, weren't they? Was Chelsea. Yeah, they were beaten 4-0. But they played like this 5-2, 5-4-1, 5-2-1, 2-3, or whatever they want to call it. But they played on the Wachu up front, and he's a unit. And
he gave us a lot of trouble last time.
Yeah, he'll be a handful in the air. And there's a young guy plays on the left wing, Sulemina. And he came into Southampton a couple of years ago. Hadn't really kicked on in his first season, but he came in with a lot of hype around him. And he got injured. He was out of favor for a while, and he's come back in. And he's a tidy player. He's pretty quick. And I think they played, was it Matias Fernandez on the other side? Young winger, tricky, but in fairness, when you got a midfield of Smallbone and Downs, and you're playing two wing backs in Walker Peters and Sugamira, you expect to dominate the ball, So and you're at home as well. So I think with the type of players that I think we'll see, we have enough guile, we have enough ingenuity to be able to create chances and get this game one handy. It's as long as you're alive and alert to what they can play on the counter, because they're quick enough, the wingers. But I'm really looking at this. There is no world where I see how we lose this unless we are really complacent. And if we're really complacent, then we deserve to get to drop points. But I just don't think that mentality is there at the minute. I think they'll be bouncing, with the results. They won't be happy with the performance last night, but they'll be happy with the results, and they'll want to take this into the league. They'll know they're going to need to be better offensively and better on the ball with their passing. That has to be a lot crisper and sharper. And there's no better way to do that than by playing against an opponent on Saturday that are going to give you the ball. So you can really work through that and almost not treat it like a training session, because that's just not what it is. But it's as close to practice in front of a ground of maintaining possession, patterns of play in a meaningful game that you can really work on stuff. If you've got set pieces that you have in your back pocket and you want to try some of that, it was
just
a comment that was
just
made
a good corner delivery. I'll do.
Well,
just a good corner delivery. I'll take that.
Kev. Torture me the entire time. Yeah.
It was something that was mentioned last night in the chat about the first corner that we had. The first corner that we've had in virtually every game for the last 5 or 6 has been a short corner.
It's always the one that looks like we've worked on the most.
But last night was no different. It was the first corner that we had. They took the short one, and it didn't work. But those kind of routines, I want to see us work on those. And there's no better way to do it than against a live opponent. And the other side of it is they're not that big. Belet Kochkap, I mean, a couple of years ago, there's a lot of people wanting us to have a serious look at him. Joe Aribo, he's not. These aren't like set the world alight players, but you have to be on your game as well. So there's no better way to try to do, and it could be a set piece that wins it for us on Tuesday night. So you can practice as much as you like in the training ground, but you can't beat real match, real experience. So look, I think I'm looking forward to Saturday because it's 3:00 kickoff as well. That's a bonus. But looking forward to seeing him back at Anfield as well because it feels, I don't know why, it just feels
ages.
It feels ages since we played at home.
That FA Cup break really kind of threw us all for a loop. I
think it feels like an international break.
Days,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad we didn't go to Dubai like some clubs because that didn't work for other competitors. Speaking of them, they have a big game coming up this weekend. I mean, relatively speaking. Chris, what are your thoughts on, some of the big games this weekend? Let's start with the Arsenal Man United game.
Arsenal, despite their striker problems, Arsenal should still be Man United. They are atrocious. They are absolutely atrocious. The killer for Arsenal
tonight, the call that they got against us, the handball was a bit soft.
Yeah, I haven't seen them. I just saw the results. I actually saw the result and thought, oh, good result. A draw away in Europe. Sociedad
they dominated Sociedad for most of the game. I actually expected more from Sociedad. Like I said, the goal they got was a soft penalty. It was a handball that was, a European handball.
Yeah. So if Arsenal score first, to me that's good night. This is why I think winning on Saturday is so key because we've seen with Arsenal more their fan base, I would say, but even Arsenal on the pitch, when the pressure starts to crank up, they're not liking it. And I sort of feel like even though they've got 2 games in hand, but 16 points is still a scary number, and we've been on the other side of that, and you're like, don't fancy this, and eventually you get to see it. So I think Arsenal win, but it might probably like 3-1. Plus they'll be buoyed with the fact that although it was only PSV, you still slapped 7 in Europe, and scoring 7 in Europe doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I mean they made light work of PSV, and it's a very we played a very rotated side against PSV, and I think there was about 4 players missing for that game where when Arsenal played them. But I do think that was a statement result. I mean, there's no mistake about, I know we're rival fans, but to clean up like that in this round of a European competition, I mean, it's still impressive. Hopefully they got all their goals out of their system and won't see any this weekend. Kev, what are you expecting from that game?
My head would tell you Arsenal should go there and be able to comfortably do a job. And they should. They should be able to go and do a job on Manchester United. Manchester United are all over the place. Defensively, they're a shambles. They seem to be better in midfield. The fact that they're dropping Bruno Fernandes deeper. I think he's much better in that role. But up front, they're a joke. Højlund is just not it. Xerxes is not a striker. He's a winger that can chip in with a goal every 4. He's a 1 in 4 kind of player, maybe a 1 in 5. They got some good young kids in there, but I think they'll have to sell them in order to finance a rebuild. They're in massive financial trouble. They're rotten from the top down. Their owners are a disgrace, and their manager is just treading water, looking for exit holes out the gap as soon as he can get away with it. I'm delighted for him. I think I'm delighted. I'm happy that they're wallowing in this.
I hope it continues.
I think it will. I think there's no financial way that they can spend the kind of money they need to spend to be able to get back into contention, into a race for a top 6. And I think the more clubs who are better run in the top half of the table spend better, spend smarter, they'll pull away from the likes of Manchester United. I think they're a shambles of a club from start to finish. And all of their bad business that they've done over the last 5 years has come home to roost this season, and
I mean,
it's not going to get better.
I was just reading an article earlier. It was talking about Mainu, and they were trying to get Mainu on a new deal, and they were saying that he was coming to the table with an 800% wage increase demand from where he is now. And I think you're gonna see that problem where, you know, yeah, they want to keep their young stars, but I think they might end up selling a lot of them. I just don't think they have the financial flexibility, I guess, to offer what they need to stay at that club. And they have every right to offer big money because they have loads of players on big money at that club. And it's, you know, it's one of the reasons why our wage structure is so lauded, because we have a system in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening. Going forward, I think, you know, the other standout tie for me probably is the Forest City game. Chris, what do you think about that one?
I think it'd be a tough game because Forest away have proven that they're tough, but I think City are hitting in the league. Have hit form probably at the right time for them. So I was thinking in my head a 2-1 to City, but you know, a draw wouldn't surprise me. But I think City might just edge it 2-1. They just seem to be generally in the league. I think they've turned the corner a little bit and just look a bit more solid. But listen, we've seen Forest away is a pain in the arse. Ask Arne Slot, he'll tell you.
Oh, he'll tell you. He'll tell you many, many times. You know, most of them, if you want to go through them, we can go through rapid fire. I think, you know, the other standout probably might be Spurs versus Bournemouth, Kev.
That'll be a game, man.
I think that'll be probably a pretty active game back and forth. I mean, those are both two energetic teams. Any thoughts on that one?
Yes, Bournemouth need to get back to winning ways. Spurs' result tonight did not help them in one iota, and they're probably going to have to make changes against Bournemouth because their season hinges. Everything is on the Europa League.
I know he was training with them. Did he come on at all today?
Who was that? Sorry,
Solanke.
I'm
not sure if he came on. Antico is saying he's injured. Right? Is he injured again? Because I thought he just came back.
He wasn't. He's not in the squad.
Okay.
Oh no, sorry. Hang on. Look at the wrong thing. Solanke. Oh, sorry. No, he did come on. He came on. He came on the 72nd minute. Yeah. He came on the 72nd minute. I was substituted on the 92nd.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that means
looks like he was injured again tonight. So that's not great. Looks like
no. That can't be like Ange bringing an injured player back too soon. Surely not.
I mean, that doesn't sound like Spurs at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
Here's the thing. This is what I'm saying. Their season hinges on the Europa League. If they can win the Europa League, they qualify back into the Champions League. You know, so they'll have turned a really poor season into a very successful one. But Bournemouth, again, it seems they were really flying, really going well. They lost against us, and it feels like they've hit a brick wall. Still playing really good.
Card really threw them.
Yeah, they're still playing really well. They're playing good football, and I think their style of football could really hurt Tottenham. But it's all about, for me with Bournemouth, it feels like it's all about confidence and rhythm. And when they're confident, and anything's possible, they're a nightmare. But if that confidence is shaken, then you know they can be a bit flaky. So I think I fancy Bournemouth to get a win, and it's one they need, I think.
Okay, I mean those are mostly the standouts. The other ones, you know, if you want to just do real quick, Chris, quick prediction on Brighton Fulham.
2-2.
Yeah, it's a tough one now.
Okay, Kev, Crystal Palace Ipswich.
Palace. But it'll be interesting to see who they play up front because Mateta won't be available. Yep. So yeah,
Nketiah,
fancy Palace. You fancy Nketiah, yeah. Okay. But Palace at home, you know, against a side like Palace. That, you know, 3-0,
yeah.
I think they should make light work of that. Chris, Brentford versus Villa.
Ooh,
would be interesting.
2-1 Brentford.
Brentford's at home.
2-1 Brentford. Villa's record after Champions League games isn't fantastic. So I'll say 2-1 Brentford.
Okay. Kev, I'll give you the Everton game, Wolves versus Everton.
Oh.
I think Everton beat them.
Okay.
Yeah, Everton will beat them.
All right.
8 o'clock Saturday. I won't be. Well, no, that's Saturday night, isn't it? That's fine. There's no games on. That's fine. There's no games on tomorrow night.
We're doing that last 20 this weekend. So again, if you want to check out that on Patreon, there's a few of these games. It'll be the Brighton Fulham game, Palace Ipswich game. It'll be our game, and that'll be the last 20. So should be interesting. So yeah, definitely check that out. Chris, I'll give you Chelsea Leicester.
Oh, 4-0 Chelsea.
Probably.
I'll be the way they're going. I'll be intrigued if Ruud lasts the season.
I don't know. He hasn't really improved them.
No, but just in general, I think Leicester are an absolute mess. They're absolutely abysmal.
I don't know. I feel like as the season has gone on, it's weird because I thought they looked a little bit more composed at the beginning of the season, and it's just sort of disintegrated with time. I think the last game is Monday. That's West Ham versus Newcastle. Newcastle kind of on some interesting injury news ahead of our clash with them next weekend. I don't know if you guys want to touch on that at all.
Yeah, it's a shame about
what do there, because we've got Botman that's going out, we've got Lewis Hall that's out, we've got maybe Isaac that's out, you've got Gordon on his red card suspension. It's a lot of key players there. What do you think they're going to do? I know we have Davey in the chat. If he wants to throw in his prediction, that would be great as well. Kev, what are your thoughts on that one?
It's a shame, isn't it, Kev, about Botman?
It is, but I look at Botman. He's a big unit of a man. And if he's got problems with his knees, I think he needs to slim down. He needs to, his body shape, something is not right there. He's very big, very, very muscular, big, tall guy, and there's a lot of weight on him, muscular weight. He's not chubby, you know what I mean. But it's a long road back for him because he's had some horrible luck with injuries. But look, we went into a League Cup final, one of the kids, so won't be taking Newcastle lightly for anything. So
a good point.
They might want to try something against West Ham. Try some of the younger players who they might need to use at the weekend and see how they fare. It'll be good for them as well. It's an away night, Monday Night Football, away at West Ham, the Olympic Stadium. And West Ham are no great shakes at the minute. They really aren't. Fancy Newcastle to get a win. But it'll be interesting. I'll be more watching that to see the lineups. I'll watch the game, but it'll be more interesting to see the lineups and who they play and how they look to compensate for the players that are missing up front, because they have to figure out. Because Harvey Barnes is a really good player, but Harvey Barnes isn't going to beat people for pace too often. So. And everything about when you're playing with Anthony Gordon is you're geared to counter. You're geared to play with a player with that lightning burst of pace. So it would be interesting to see how Newcastle compensate for that.
Yeah, for sure. And Davey's thrown in there that there's rumors circulating it's career threatening for Botman, and that's not something that you
don't
ever
wish that on anyone.
No. I really hope that's not true. He's very good. He's one that we were looking at for a while. When Newcastle initially signed him, I was impressed. I thought that was a really good signing for them. Really helped solidify their defense. The knee injuries just have absolutely tortured the poor guy, and it's got shades of Joe Gomez. With just being tortured by these repetitive injuries, and you definitely don't want to see that.
Quick question for you guys. Dave's asking us, what was your first live game? His was St. James's Park, 1976 versus Chester in the League Cup. Got beat 1-0 and I was hooked. What was your first live game, Kev?
Like or just on TV?
My first live game at Anfield was the
last game
of the season 2 years ago. Yeah, the game against Villa, and what I remember about that was how close we were to the Villa fans.
You were in the You were in the Abbey Road,
Yeah,
weren't you?
Lower Annie, yeah, amazing experience. First game that I ever watched was a World Cup qualifier for the Republic of Ireland against Belgium for the '82 World Cup. And I think we had the likes of Liam Brady, Frank Stapleton, not sure if Ronnie Whelan played, but Mark Lawrenson played. And we narrowly missed out on qualification for the '82 World Cup by a point. And we were in the same group as France and Belgium. And France and Belgium both got into the semi-final of the World Cup in '82. So that was the caliber of, that was the caliber of the group that we were in, and it was sickening to say the least.
Yeah, and Dick was saying Keeks was Brentford. He's never mentioned it.
Never mentioned it. No.
I think my first live Liverpool game was 1994. We beat Southampton 3-1. Rush scored 2, and Fowler scored a penalty. I was in the Kop, middle of the Kop. It was a friend of the family took me, and we went 1-0 down. And that's when that 94 was when we had that. Although we're in the red kit, that was that gold kit with the live birds scattered all over it, which I always loved. I think I've got. Yeah. I think in my house somewhere I've got my first Liverpool scarf was that gold one, the gold and black Liverpool scarf, because I was obsessed with that away kit at the time. I think that was my first live game. Not as good as my daughter's first live game, which Kev remembers me talking about, which was
like 5-5. Was that
5-5 Liverpool win a penalty. That
we
was
have something in common. My first game was an Arsenal game too. It was in 2011. It was that 2 late penalties. It was Van Persie and Dirk Kuyt. How do you pronounce his name? Dirk
Kuyt.
I can't say it. I don't know why. Can't say that word. So like the 290
when Kenny told Wenger to piss off, which was the best part of it.
I was living in London at the time, and that was kind of the first time that I was able to come, to be in the area. I had friends that got me into football quite young. I went to like an international boarding school, so I had lots of people from all over the world that followed football. Because in the US we didn't really get a lot of football coverage until I want to say like the mid 2010s ish. The first World Cup I remember was the Zidane headbutt. That was the first one that I really remember. Was
that 2006?
Yeah. So that was the one I remember kind of everyone getting on board with, and like having friends that really paid attention to it. Before that, it was like a bit of an underground thing where, you had to have the right connections to watch it. It seems like forever ago, but it also seems like yesterday.
I think my first World Cup was 94. Because I got into football late for England. I think I properly started following football when I was about 10, 11. Before that, I'd play footy with my mates, but I never watched it on telly. I had no interest in watching it. So that's why when Gav talks about John Barnes, I regret not getting into football younger, because I didn't see peak John Barnes. I saw John Barnes, the midfielder, not John Barnes, the winger. Because there's only a year between me and Gav. So that's where I sort of missed out. But so 93 onwards was when I really got into footy. So 94 World Cup was just like, wow. I didn't win it, so I didn't care. But I was just like, oh, wow, this is a spectacle. This is amazing.
My first World Cup was 82. Young Norman Whiteside playing for Northern Ireland. Alan Brazil played for Scotland. John Wark, Steve Archibald, Kenny.
Was that the World Cup that Ferguson?
That was in Spain. Yeah, I think
didn't take.
No.
Was that the year? Was that the year late?
That was 86.
Right.
That was 86. But 82 was in Spain, and the Brazil side that were in that, there was a game between Argentina and Brazil, and I swear it was ridiculous. And the pitch that they played on, I think it was in Zaragoza, and it had like all weird hexagonal designs on the pitch. And they said at the time the pitch was actually made smaller, and it was just a spectacle. It was just a spectacle. The Brazil side at the time were arguably the best side ever, never to win a World Cup. They should have won it that year. They just really missed out on having a number 9. Right up there with the Dutch side of 74 and 78 as to how good this 82 Brazil side were. But watching Maradona for the first time, it was a great experience. It was a great tournament as well because it was a great, it was right in the summer. You were on summer holidays from school. There was no other sport on. And back then we only had 2 channels, and it was just non-stop football. It was great. Fucking loved it. But what FIFA announced today is a disgrace that they want to expand.
I don't know how legitimate that is because
I think it is.
Is it? Because I heard it was just one guy from Uruguay that decided that he was going to propose this, and I think under the rules they have to take every proposal and go through it. I don't know how much actual truth there is. I think it's kind of being made into a big headline. If there is any truth, I think it's absolutely disgraceful because there's just no way that for the health of these players, you can squeeze any more games. I just don't think it's possible.
Well, they're already expanded it for the USA World Cup to 48. Is it 48?
It's 48, and then the talk today was 64, which 64. Just seems mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's a nonsense, but it is what it is. It's FIFA trying to scram every little, every ounce out of money that they can out of sponsorship and out of players. They couldn't care less. It was.
You've got players dropping like flies already. I don't know how many more need to fall.
I think this Club World Cup that's happening this summer, while it might be, because we're not in it, it'll be entertaining to watch because there probably will be some good games. It wouldn't surprise me if you see City and Chelsea fall off a cliff next season.
Yeah,
because and it's nothing to do with the players, the quality. It's not like a rival bias thing. It's more of a. That's a lot of games.
It's not good for the players.
All the games they played this season. That's a busy summer and basically no preseason.
You put it into the chat the other day. The prize money is big. It's $1 billion. $100 million.
It's a $1 billion prize pool that the winner gets $100 million.
And for reference, the League Cup that we're in, it's $100,000 that you get for winning it.
Exactly.
So it's night and day, and so the idea
club owners will be all over it.
Club owners will be all over it, and the idea that they could potentially rest players for this. They're not. They're going to be pushed to play their best teams so that they can get that prize money. Yeah,
because it will make a massive difference to your transfer budget.
You better believe it. And there are clubs out there like Chelsea that need to balance the books in creative ways.
Exactly. Yeah, it's massive.
So yeah, I for one, I'm happy that we're not in it.
Hotline. Best place that I've had a pint of Guinness in Liverpool is Pogues.
I'll let you know when I go this summer. Which I'm looking forward to. I still need to scope that out. Hopefully I'll find the best place for Guinness. I'm not a big Guinness drinker, but maybe you'll convince me or convert me.
Yeah, well, they haven't convinced me yet, so don't worry.
I feel like it's very filling, but I feel like when in Rome, I will try.
Exactly.
Anything else you guys want to talk about before we kind of close things up? I do need to mention Peter. He is, we've talked about this before. He's a longtime regular. He's been on the show before. He has a show called Enigma on Vicar Street. It's in Dublin in June. I know there's a few shows that are already sold out, but there are tickets available for some of his later shows. So definitely check that out. He's also in a new film called Red Spain, which is released later this year. Again, he can sing, he can dance, he can look good on camera, he can do all the things. So, hopefully he'll be back on the show sooner rather than later. But, if you need your Peter fix, check out those events and definitely just support him because he's been a longtime contributor to the show for a while. So it's great to see him doing well. Other than that, Chris, any final thoughts? Anything you want to say before we go?
No, just look forward to weekend games. Fingers crossed we can get a win and then see how Arsenal cope with the pressure, because I do think of Arsenal, they're literally one bad result away from it all falling down.
Total meltdown.
Total, as in, like, I think anyone would then go. I push away. I think if they lose to United the weekend, that gap's unsustainable to close down, and then all the eggs will be in the Champions League basket if it isn't already. And keep your eye out late next week when hopefully I'll have a women's show coming out. I'm hopefully going to be recording it with Neil Atkinson and Emma Sanders on Wednesday.
That's a killer lineup.
Try my best.
You can absolutely hold your own amongst them, but yeah, two of the greats in that department. Kev, any final thoughts?
Yeah, looking forward to the weekend, but for me, the weekend starts tomorrow night. Natasha Jonas against Lauren Price for the undisputed, I think it's women's welterweight championship in York Hall in Bethnal Green in London, I think, and be an absolute belting fight. Natasha Jonas, 40 years of age, from Liverpool, two-time world champion, holds 2 belts. Lauren Price comes in, Olympic gold medalist, I think, or Olympic medalist, and up and coming. Well, not up and coming. She's 2-time world champion in her own right, and that's on Sky Sports tomorrow night. Really looking forward to that, and that'll kick off really good weekend. France against Ireland in the rugby, Liverpool, Southampton in football. Can't wait. It's going to be a cracking weekend for me.
Entire weekend planned out. I don't
Absolutely.
even know what I'm doing tomorrow.
I think I'm doing a show. I might be doing a show with Gav tomorrow morning for the 30. So that should be a bit of fun.
Yeah. So check out the show tomorrow. That's what I'll be doing. I got a little bit of free time tomorrow before I have to go to work, so I will keep an eye out for that. As for us, I think that's about it for tonight.
God, someone said F1's back. That's not a sport.
10 days.
You know what? Everyone, to each their own. I don't watch wrestling. I don't watch boxing. But if some people
10 days,
we'll educate you, Ashley. We'll get you into it.
It's not very big out here for me. The pay-per-view. That's a I don't know. That's tough for me. Anyways, that's a completely different show. We're gonna wrap it up today because otherwise we'll be here for another 30 minutes. But thanks to everyone. Thanks to Kev. Thanks to Chris. We will catch you up this weekend. We will be back for that final 20. And then we'll do our regular kind of post-match dissection of the game. So, catch up with us then. And until just have a good night, everyone.